They say blood is thicker than water. But for me, blood was the knife that cut the deepest. My prison sentence didn't begin when the judge slammed the gavel. It began the moment my own sister, my flesh and blood, looked straight into my eyes and told the world, "Yes, he's guilty. I'm Nathan Cole. I'm 33 years old. And this is not just my story. This is the truth my family buried to protect themselves." As I sit here in this dimly lit cell, the air smells of rust and damp stone. Chains rattle in the distance. Prisoners yell at each other, their anger echoing like ghosts. But none of that noise is as loud as the memory of my sister's voice. Her words, "He's guilty." They cut deeper than the bars around me. Because in that moment, it wasn't just the court that condemned me, it was the person I trusted most in this world. You know, betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes, it comes from the very hand you once held when you were afraid of the dark. It all started one rainy night. The city streets glistened with water, and the storm roared like a warning from the heavens. I was just driving home from work, tired, hungry, and thinking about how my sister Claire had been struggling lately. She was always under pressure, always hiding something behind her forced smile. That night, she called me. Her voice was shaking. "Nathan, I need your help. Please, don't ask questions, just come." I should have known. I should have listened to my gut. But when it comes to family, don't we all silence our doubts? When I reached her apartment, the world I knew ended. Because lying on the floor was a man I didn't recognize, blood pooling around his head. And my sister, standing there, trembling, holding a shattered glass bottle in her hand. "Help me, Nathan. Please, you can't let them find me like this," she begged. Tears streamed down her face, her whole body shaking. In that moment, my heart fought against my mind. Logic screamed, "Call the police, Nathan." But love whispered, "Protect her." I chose love. I chose family. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. What I didn't know was that by helping her, I was walking straight into a trap. A trap where my loyalty would become the weapon used against me. Because when the trial came, and the spotlight turned toward my sister, she didn't defend me. She didn't protect me. She didn't tell the truth. Instead, she was the first one to point her finger and say, "It was him." So tell me, how do you survive prison walls when the betrayal came from inside your own home? How do you keep breathing when your own blood buries you alive? That's where my story begins, not with justice, not with truth, but with betrayal that cut deeper than any blade. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people you trusted most, you already know how sharp that pain is. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been stabbed in the back by family? I want to hear your story. The sound of the gavel still echoes in my ears. Bang, bang, bang. 3 strikes that ended my life as I knew it. But that wasn't the part that broke me. What shattered me was the moment before, when my sister, Claire, took the witness stand. She looked so fragile, like the little girl I used to protect from bullies at school. The same girl who would run to me when thunder scared her at night. But that day, her voice carried thunder of its own. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "Yes, it was Nathan." The room went silent. Everyone stared at me like I had just confessed. My chest tightened. My ears rang. And for the first time, I realized, family doesn't always mean loyalty. Sometimes, family is the rope that hangs you. The prosecutor had built his case with weak evidence. Circumstantial. Nothing solid. If Claire had just told the truth, I would have walked out of that courtroom a free man. But she didn't. She spun the story, tears flowing, voice breaking, acting as if she was the victim. He came to my apartment angry. He had been drinking. The man tried to stop him, and Nathan hit him. Lie. All lies. I wasn't angry. I wasn't drunk. And I had never even seen that man before that night. But Claire's tears were stronger than my words. Her pain was more believable than my silence. And just like that, the jury believed her. The day I was sentenced to life, the sun was shining outside. Funny, isn't it? How the world can be so bright when your own world is collapsing into darkness. They led me in chains through the prison gates. The air smelled of sweat, iron, and hopelessness. Men screamed behind bars, some laughing, some crying. The guards pushed me forward, barking orders like I was cattle being led to slaughter. "This is your new home," one of them sneered. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just locked in a cell. I was locked inside a betrayal that would haunt me forever. That first night was the longest night of my life. I lay on a thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. Rats scurried across the floor. A man in the next cell screamed in his sleep. Another muttered prayers. But me. I just replayed her words over and over. Yes, it was Nathan. My sister. The girl who once held my hand crossing the street. The girl who once whispered, "I'll always have your back." And now, she was the reason I had a number on my chest instead of a name. Do you know what it feels like to trust someone with your life, and realize they sold it for their own freedom? That's the kind of pain that doesn't heal. It eats you alive, bit by bit. In prison, men kill for survival. They fight for respect. They bleed for dominance. But me, I was dying quietly, every single day, because of betrayal. I wasn't killed by a knife. I wasn't killed by a gun. I was killed by words. By a sister's testimony. Weeks passed. Months dragged on. I tried to keep my head down, tried to survive. But inside me, a fire was burning. Every clang of the prison doors. Every insult thrown my way. Every night I spent staring into the dark. It all added fuel to that fire. And then came the day that changed everything. A riot. The air was thick with chaos. Guards shouting. Prisoners fighting. Blood on the floor. I remember standing in the middle of it all, hearing screams, seeing fists fly, and in that madness, I had a moment of clarity. I realized, if I didn't fight for my truth, I would die here. Forgotten. Buried under lies. That was the day I stopped being the victim. That was the day I decided, revenge wasn't just an option. It was survival. Late at night, while the others slept, I made myself a promise. I whispered it into the darkness, as if my sister could somehow hear it across the miles. Claire, one day, the truth will come out. And when it does, you'll feel the weight of what you did to me. That whisper wasn't anger. It wasn't hate. It was a vow. A vow that I would not let betrayal define me forever. And let me ask you something. If the person you loved most destroyed your life, what would you do? Would you forgive them? Or would you fight until your last breath to make them pay? Tell me in the comments, because I want to know if I'm the only one who feels that betrayal cuts deeper than prison walls. That was just the beginning. Because what came next wasn't just about surviving prison. It was about finding allies in the unlikeliest of places. It was about gathering the strength to fight back. It was about reclaiming my life, even if it meant burning everything to the ground. Because you can take my freedom. You can take my name. But you'll never take my truth. And one day, the world will hear it. Years That's how long it's been since I last saw the outside world. Years since I felt the sun on my skin without bars in between. But you know what hurts more than the lost time? It's knowing that the person who stole it from me shares my blood. My sister, Claire. I've replayed that day in court 1,000 times. Her voice, her trembling lips, her false tears. Every night, her words haunt me. And every morning, I wake up with the same thought: I can't die in here with this lie unchallenged. Because if betrayal is a prison, then truth is the only key. It was during my 4th year behind bars when I met Marcus. A tall, rough-looking man with scars on his knuckles and fire in his eyes. At first glance, he was just another inmate, hardened by time and violence. But Marcus had something most didn't. He had been betrayed too. One night, while the rest of the block slept, we sat by the bars and shared our stories. He told me about his cousin who sold him out to save himself. I told him about Claire. And when I was done, Marcus just nodded and said something I'll never forget. Betrayal cuts the deepest, brother. But don't let it turn you into a ghost. Use it. Let it give you purpose. Those words, they lit a spark inside me. For the first time, I wasn't just rotting in a cell. I was planning. Marcus knew people. Guards who could be bribed. Inmates who owed him favors. Slowly, piece by piece, he helped me dig into the truth. And what I uncovered made my blood run cold. Claire hadn't just lied. She hadn't just pointed the finger at me out of fear. No. She had a reason. The man I was accused of harming? He wasn't a stranger to her. He was someone she had debts with. Dangerous people. And framing me was her way out. She sold me to buy her freedom. And that truth hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. Prison is chaos. It eats the weak. It tests the strong. And during another riot, when fists flew and blood splattered the walls, I realized something. This wasn't just punishment anymore. This was training. Every day I survived inside these walls, I was becoming stronger, sharper, because one day, I'd walk out, and when I did, I'd face her, not with violence, not with rage, but with the truth. Then one day, I received a letter. It was from my mother. Her handwriting shaky, her words cold. She wrote, "Maybe prison is where you belong. Maybe Claire was right. Maybe you were always the troublemaker." Reading those words, it was like my heart had been ripped out twice. First by Claire, and now by the woman who gave me life. I tore the letter apart. But the pain stayed. Because sometimes, betrayal doesn't just come from one person. Sometimes, it spreads, until the people you love most turn into strangers. But here's the thing. In prison, you have two choices. You either let betrayal poison you until you become a monster, or you turn the pain into purpose. I chose the second. Because I realized, revenge alone won't set me free. The truth will. And if I die in here, at least I'll die fighting for it. So I started writing. Every night, I put pen to paper. My story. My truth. Every detail, every memory, every crack in Claire's lies. At first, it was just for me. But Marcus told me something powerful. Your words can reach places your fists never will. Write it. Send it out. Make the world hear you. So I did. I sent my letters to journalists, to organizations that fight for the innocent, to anyone who would listen. Most ignored me. But one day, a reply came. A reporter wanted to investigate. And for the first time in years, I felt hope. But let me ask you this. If the person you trusted most destroyed your life, and the whole world believed their lie, would you still fight for your truth? Or would you let the silence bury you alive? Tell me in the comments, because sometimes, I wonder if I'm crazy for still hoping. I don't know how this story ends yet. Maybe I'll die in here. Maybe I'll walk out one day. But what I do know is this. My sister may have called me guilty before the judge did. But she doesn't get the last word. I do. Because truth doesn't stay buried forever. It always finds a way to crawl out of the dark. And when it does, it will burn brighter than every lie that tried to smother it. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, if you've ever felt the sting of being judged unfairly, then you know my pain. So don't let my story end here. Share it. Comment below what you would have done if you were in my place. Because maybe, just maybe, the more people hear it, the closer I get to justice. And to Claire. If you're out there listening, remember this. Prison bars can hold my body, but they'll never hold my truth.